Throughout my life, I've been subjected to countless hurtful words aimed directly at me. I've been called a scumbag for being single, among other things, but nothing compares to the insult my brother-in-law hurled at me recently. His slanderous remarks won't go unchallenged. My name is Amy Smith. I'm 38 years old, single, and working hard. You might wonder why I have a brother-in-law. If I'm not married yet, it's because I'm engaged. My fiancé, James, is 6 years younger than me. We met through a mutual friend and instantly connected. My work schedule is incredibly hectic, often requiring me to work on my days off. I met James during one of these busy periods, and when we're together, I can finally relax. James is a fantastic cook, skilled at sewing, and a diligent worker, qualities I admittedly lack. After we moved in together, he took care of the housework and even cleaned my suits, which has been a huge help. I always feel a bit guilty because I know how busy he is too, but I've reserved a table at a nice restaurant for my next day off, so we can finally enjoy a nice dinner together. It had become a regular habit for me to treat James to dinner as a way of showing appreciation for all his hard work, using the money I earned from my own efforts. I loved doing this for him. Don't worry about it, he would say. I can leave work on time, and I'm not nearly as busy as you. Besides, I do housework because I enjoy it. As we plan an upcoming family gathering, James often asked, "How are your family's plans for our meeting?" We had already met each other's parents shortly after our engagement, but we wanted to host a dinner party where both families could get to know each other better. James has one older brother, while I have two younger siblings. Instead of waiting until the wedding, both families agreed it would be nice to connect beforehand. So, we arranged a gathering that would include our parents and siblings. "I'm sorry, but my brother can't make it due to work," James explained apologetically. "I know you're also busy with work, so please accept his apologies." "Your brother is a very talented lawyer, isn't he?" I asked as James lowered his hat slightly. "I wish I could have met him, but if he's busy, it's understandable. We can't always meet at a wedding." I wasn't too concerned, as I felt it was most important for the couple and their parents to come together, even if siblings couldn't make it. "Just so you know, my brother can be a bit distant with people," James added, looking tense. "Even if he did come, I'd worry he might be rude." As the day of the party arrived, it turned out that my brother-in-law was indeed absent. James seemed visibly relieved that his brother wasn't there. With my brother and sister in attendance, the party turned out to be a pleasant and enjoyable affair. My parents-in-law and I had a great time, and my siblings seemed to get along well with James, which was a huge relief for me. It was a fantastic opportunity for both families to bond, though I couldn't help but wish I had met my brother-in-law. As the day came to an end, I never imagined that when I eventually met my brother-in-law, I would find him to be such a rude person. In hindsight, it seemed like a blessing that he hadn't attended the dinner party. One day, my mother and I found ourselves at the university hospital. She hadn't been feeling well, and after visiting a local clinic near her home, she was referred to the hospital for a thorough examination. Although her symptoms were limited to palpitations and dizziness, I wanted to ensure her health was in check before the wedding. My mother, now in her mid-60s, still appeared youthful, but the thought of a potential serious illness worried me. She had already delayed marriage until her 40s, which had caused me some concern, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude for how well she had raised my siblings and me. "Ma'am, why don't I cover the cost for you to have a thorough checkup?" I suggested. I had never felt such a strong desire to help before, but this was precisely why I had worked so hard to be there for my family when it mattered most. Because the test couldn't be completed in a single day, we had to visit the hospital several times. The tragedy occurred during our second visit. The university hospital was exceptionally crowded that day, with long lines everywhere. My mother and I were waiting our turn, sipping hot tea in a quiet area away from the main waiting room, where we could relax and have something to drink.
My phone rang. It could be a work call. I handed my tea to my mother and stepped away to find a quieter spot where I could answer. It was indeed work-related, a call to confirm that I wouldn't be changing my surname when I joined the family register after marriage. As I returned to my mother, I heard someone yelling. My heart sank. What was happening? Was my mother okay? The shouting seemed to be directed at her, and I quickly rushed over. I saw my mother standing, repeatedly bowing in apology to a man dressed in a sharp, expensive-looking suit, with a luxurious watch and polished shoes. His slicked-back hair and haughty demeanor made him look like a debt collector. He definitely wasn't someone my mother knew, so I stepped in to find out what was going on. Excuse me, I said, trying to be polite. Did my mother do something to offend you? The man shifted his gaze to me, sizing me up from head to toe. She placed a cup of tea on the seat, and when I sat down, it spilled on my suit. What are you going to do about it? I have important business after this. I looked at his suit and saw that it was indeed a bit damp. I'm so sorry, I said sincerely. Let me cover the cost of the dry cleaning. But before I could finish, the man cut me off, his voice rising even louder. His shouting quickly drew the attention of everyone nearby, and soon, nurses and a small crowd had gathered around us. I'll let it go with just the cleaning fee, the man finally said, perhaps realizing the scene he was causing. Do you have any contact details? How can I reach you? I fumbled for a business card but realized I didn't have one with me. Just then, a security guard approached and asked, "Is everything all right here? Is there a problem?" The man clicked his tongue in irritation and threw his business card at my feet. "Make sure you call me," he sneered. "Don't think you can escape. I have connections at this hospital, they'll give me your information if you don't." I was stunned by his audacity and cruelty. As I bent down to pick up the card, he continued his tirade. "You're single at your age? Women have an expiration date, and you're not just expired, you're unsold industrial waste, like raw garbage. A single woman, pathetic." Before I could respond to the vile insult directed at both me and my mother, the man turned on his heel and hurried off, clearly trying to avoid the security guard. I was left standing there, furious and disappointed in myself for not being able to protect my mother from this man's rudeness. My stomach churned with anger and frustration. I quickly offered a light bow to the onlookers and the concerned security guards, then picked up the business card from the floor. As I read the name and title, I was stunned. Who was this jerk? I couldn't believe the person behind those words was someone with such a title. So that's what all this was about. I cancelled my mother's checkup and took her home, prioritizing her mental well-being over anything else. But I knew I would never forget that man. I was determined to make him regret every word he spewed at us. About a week later, I found myself at the courthouse. It wasn't like the dramatic court battles you see in America, where a stain on a suit leads to a lawsuit, but I had my reasons for being there. As I walked through the familiar halls, the sound of my heels echoing off the walls, I spotted a man I recognized approaching from the far end of the corridor. I knew it was him.
As I considered what to say, he looked up, recognition flickering in his eyes. "You're that trashy single woman from the other day, aren't you?" he sneered. "You've got to be kidding me. What are you doing here? This isn't a place for someone like you." It was the same man who had insulted my mother and me at the hospital. I wanted to unleash a barrage of harsh words, but something held me back. I have a darker side, a part of me that wants to see justice served with a touch of vengeance. Instead, I smiled coolly and said, "Oh, I'm very sorry about the other day. You must be Tom Dixon from Honeywell Law, correct?" I brushed off his outburst, recalling the business card he had thrown at me. Dixon's expression twisted with annoyance as he launched into a tirade about the suit incident, his mouth curling into a nasty grin. "I had a client meeting at the hospital after that," he snapped. "You embarrass me. How does a trashy woman like you stain someone's suit and then not even have the decency to call me back?" As he ranted, I realized Dixon was indeed a lawyer, and our encounter today was purely by chance. His loud voice was attracting attention from others in the hallway, and I could feel the eyes of passers-by. Dixon seemed to revel in the spectacle, taunting me even louder as if he wanted to show off. I shook my head, which only irritated him further, but before he could continue, a voice from behind me cut through the tension. "Mr. Dixon, what's the matter?" someone asked, stepping up to address him directly. When Dixon saw the man behind the voice, his demeanor instantly shifted. He mumbled, "Oh no, this woman," as he fumbled to pull a business card from his case. The man who had just spoken looked at me, and his eyes widened in surprise. I glanced at the card Dixon had just handed over. It read, "Attorney Hannibal, partner at Honeywell Law Office." This man wasn't just Dixon's boss, was the CEO of the entire firm. As soon as Hannibal realized who I was, he began to tremble. He quickly bowed at a 90-degree angle, his tone suddenly respectful. "My goodness, it's been a while," he exclaimed. "Dixon, my subordinate, has been extremely rude to you. Please accept my sincerest apologies." Dixon, still clueless, looked at Hannibal in confusion. "Mr. Honeywell, what's going on? Do you know this woman? This is the same lady who ruined my suit the other day and tried to overcharge me for dry cleaning." But Hannibal, now pale, grabbed Dixon by the scruff of his neck and forced him to bow. "Ouch, what are you doing?" Dixon protested, still not understanding. Hannibal leaned in and spoke quietly but sternly. "How dare you, Dixon? This woman is a prosecutor, and not just any prosecutor. She's my former boss, Smith, who has never lost a case." Dixon's face twisted in disbelief as he tried to process what he'd just heard. That single woman he had insulted so viciously was a prosecutor. "Yes, I am a lawyer. Since childhood, I've been unable to overlook injustice. I once debated whether to become a police officer or a lawyer, but ultimately chose the latter. My goal has always been to bring criminals to justice, even if I couldn't catch them myself. Now, as a prosecutor, I work tirelessly to see that justice is served. As for Mr. Hannibal, he fears me because I mentored him when he was just starting out. He knows exactly what I'm capable of, and now, so does Dixon. He's a serious man, but he's in trouble now because the bond between a mentor and a rookie never fades." Attorney Dixon, who was visibly shaken, seemed ready to say something, but I didn't give him the chance. "You've grown into a fine man, Mr. Hannibal," I said calmly. Then, turning to Dixon, I added, "Mr. Dixon, I'll pay for your dry cleaning immediately. I apologize for the delay of being swamped with work. Is that acceptable, brother-in-law?" "Brother-in-law," Dixon repeated, his mouth dropping open in shock. "No way, James's fiancé." He frowned, his eyes wide with disbelief. The man who had been so rude to my mother and me was indeed my brother-in-law, the one who had missed our wedding dinner due to work. As I watched, his face turned pale. "As a lawyer, you should know that comments like 'a single woman is garbage' are not just insulting, they're legally actionable," I said, my voice steady. "I was ready to cover the cost of your dry cleaning, but your response was appalling. You could be sentenced to up to 1 year in prison, fine up to $3,000, or both. Which do you prefer?" As I said this, I couldn't help but smile. Attorney Dixon finally fell to his knees, bowing deeply as he realized his position was in jeopardy. "Please forgive me," he pleaded, "if the press finds out." It seemed that even assertive lawyers are keenly aware of the media's potential impact. Sometime later, I had a successful wedding, and am now thoroughly enjoying my newlywed life. James has embraced his role as a full-time house husband, allowing me to dedicate myself even more to my work and family. My brother-in-law apologized repeatedly to both my mother and me and even offered to settle the matter. However, I decided to let him off the hook for the dry cleaning bill. I could cover that myself. Although my brother-in-law didn't attend the ceremony likely due to feeling awkward, as business had taken a significant hit due to his behavior toward us and complaints from other clients, it seemed that bad deeds eventually catch up with people. I promised myself that I would cherish and protect the life I've built, ensuring that my family and I continue to support each other through everything.